Hello, welcome to this track breakdown. This time I'm going to be doing my remix of What's Wrong by Face and Misanthrope. Just a few words before I do that though. As you can hear, I'm feeling a bit ill still. For those that don't know, I've just had COVID, which kind of sucked. I wanted to see what all the fuss was about, and to be honest, I don't really recommend it at all. It was really bad. I've still got a bit of a cough, so if I cough a couple of times, I'm trying my best not to. But yeah, I wanted to re-record this video last week, but that's when I had it, and I just was a bit of a mess, so that's why I haven't done the video for this month yet. There we go, started already. So, if you can excuse my coughing, I'm going to get into this remix. So, this came out quite a long time ago now, actually. Few years, definitely. I think originally I wanted to remix this track, and around that time Face and Misanthrope were doing the remix sort of EPs and releases that they wanted to do. They were working with artists, and I just said to Flo, Face, like, I've got a really good idea for What's Wrong, and it's my favourite track you've ever done, so please, 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 I beg you, let me remix. And he said no, and I said please. He said no. Then the next gig I played with him 6 months later, I was like, please, I really want to remix What's Wrong. He's like, no. Like, Flo, please let me remix it. I just want it. And yeah, then 3 more gigs, I think, of me bothering him, and he finally gave me the stems, and then I made the remix. So, little lesson is persistence is sometimes key. Yeah, so let's get into it, I guess. Originally, what I wanted to do was kind of just update the remix, as the original track is a bit dated in terms of production. It still sounds incredible, but just wanted it to have more of a modern kind of feel, and that first involved remaking the main riff, which is somewhere. Where is it? Oh, it's here. Yeah, so I wanted to remake these kind of noises that were in the original track. If I can unmute these. Hold on. Oh god, I should have done this before. Okay, I'm going to unmute all of the automation. As you can see, there's a lot of automation here, so bear with me, as usual. Okay, these are the mids. So what I've done is kind of incorporated the original sounds, but I've automated the this EQ that's kind of cutting out of the lows and just using those original layers as a texture, pretty much. And then what I've done is overlaid my own sound somewhere. Which is a serum noise that I made, and then I've just kind of used bits of the original stems and relayed those around just to kind of get a new groove, new sort of phrase going. This is the first thing I did. Well, actually, the first thing I did was do these little my own mids, pretty much, which were remaking the kind of trying to remake these original mids in a different synth. I think I used Reap Pro 5 for this. I tried to see if I had the original project for the sound design session for this, and I do, but none of the plugins work because it's such an old, I say such an old, it's a few years old, and since then I changed computers and everything got a bit funny. But this was Reap Pro 5. So as you can hear there, I've just repeated the phrase and dialed in different settings on the filter and just recorded that, so I've got different passes of the same movement, so I've got different variety, settled for one that I liked. And then this is going into another chain. which is really, really pushing it. So got some overdrive on this sound, a bit of EQ, dipping out all of that 300 region. Get this reverb as well, and another reverb over here, which may be automated. No, that's just there for roominess. And then another big dip, little boost on the top end there. More EQ, and then compression at the end. Pretty heavily compressed, that noise. This EQ is not active, so ignore that one. Excuse me, probably wasn't a wise idea to record this video at the moment when I've still got this cough. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I arranged those, and then I've got this other... This noise is doing the same sort of thing. I can't remember if this is Serum or Reap Pro again. It was probably Reap Pro because it's quite dynamic in the way that the volume is and the dynamics of the sound. It's quite uneven. I think I originally had this in F as well, but I detuned the whole thing to D sharp, possibly. So, same again, just some EQ, bit distortion. Here's a bit of a crazy EQ, lots of boosts up here. And low cutting the sides, because this is quite a phasey kind of noise. It's quite muddy, as you can hear. That EQ curve completely cleans that up. And then a low cut here, because there's a sub going on in the background, so it stops phasing with that. And yeah, I just kind of built a riff out of all those different sounds, and then I added this big Serum bass. So this is using a noise generator, excuse me, a noise generator as the movement of the sound. So I've got this AC hum, which is being automated here, the level, which is then probably going into distortion. Yeah, some pretty heavy distortion. So without that noise, it's just like a pluck, and then a sort of pitch filter, which is probably over here. Yeah, which is here. Yep, and then this filter, as it's then going into the distortion, that's what gives it the movement there, which is then being EQ'd, little dip in the low mids. Reverb filter. Actually sounds quite cool without the reverb filter this time. Bit more aggressive. And there's a lot of stuff in this remix that I'm hearing now that I'd probably do differently. Clean it up a little bit, make it slightly less in your face. The whole remix is really loud. There's there's so much stuff going on in this remix, which listening back now I'm kind of not too happy with. But at the time I think I was just going for a heavy, just giant tune, you know, massive build up, making use of the crazy mid section that they've got in the intro of the original track. Let's check yeah, I'm recording. I just had a moment where I was like, shit, I didn't hit record. Where was I? Serum. Where else? So this is pretty simple. I mean, I just get some waveforms here, and then there's just the filter sort of pluck at the beginning of the sound, which is using like as an envelope. Compression, and then The reverb's not even being used, so so this is the original sound. And the chain it's going into, bit of blood overdrive, as usual, trusty blood overdrive. Bit of a crazy EQ here, so I'm really dipping out this horrible resonance down here. Good tip if you didn't know, well, I mean, it's pretty obvious, it's not really a tip. On Pro Q, they've got the lines, these vertical lines, these signify really particular resonances that are good to watch out for. So for example, if I sort of boost, you know, those particular resonances which can be really problematic in your mixes. So it's a good little cheat sort of thing, good reference to use if you're using Pro Q, which you should be, because it is the best EQ in the world ever, genuinely and generally. So yeah, really useful little bit. So what I've done is completely, well, yeah, I got like minus 30 dB cut here on this horrible resonance. So without that, it really cuts out a lot of that resonance and just cleans up that sound completely. But yeah, some extreme EQing here. Then a bit of reverb, which is 0.1 second decay time. Not much diffusion, it's just giving it that weird sort of convolution effect, which I always do. This is just a low pass filter, which is automated in and out. Excuse me. And then camel fat. I've not seen this guy in a while. So I'm using a bit of the tube, a little bit of the mech part of the distortion, and a bit of excitation as well. And then compression and the Magic EQ, which is on P mode, which I'm not sure what that means actually. Passive maybe? Passive EQ? Pre-EQ? Possibly. So it's, I don't know. I should know, but I don't. So it's got P. I've put P on it because it sounded cool. Same for the compression. A little bit of that, and then into some more EQ weirdness. So I've done that thing which I used to do quite a lot, which is have pretty much excuse me, contradictory EQs. So as you can see here, I've completely removed 100, and here I boosted it. You might be wondering why have I done that? So I like to do this with pre-EQ. I'll take out a lot of the resonances that I don't like, and it creates a more even sound, which is then going into distortion, which is going into the camel fat, which is here. So this is the chain. Goes into here, then the distortion does its thing, and obviously if you're boosting certain nodes pre-EQ, for example, if I play this, you can get some interesting noises that way. And then this is post EQ, which I'm then exciting even more the parts of what the distortion has introduced that I like. So I like the way that it's, you know, kissing that region down there. So this post EQ is yeah, it's good to always have EQ after every sort of stage, really, especially with distortion. So you might look at this and think, why have you not just boosted it up here? It's because if I boost it up there, the effect on the sound is completely different as it's running into distortion, and then you're dealing with the later stage here. That makes sense. I hope it does. I've explained it in a really roundabout way, but anyway, there you go. So I've done 2 low cuts here, one on the stereo, low cutting down here, and again here, no particular reason why. I think I just made, I just forgot that I'd done it earlier already. I just wanted to treat that even more. Then I've boosted that mid-range as well that I liked. And this EQ, that's just the low pass that comes in later on in the track. Okay, so that's the main serum. So this is kind of cool. So this is the guy that comes in around... It comes in somewhere. Is it here? Sorry, I'm getting carried away. I like that bit. So this one comes in at some point in the track. So this is using sine waves. A little bit of tuning, modulation there. Then I got this weird band reject filter. And I've also pitched up this oscillator. Sorry, it's so muffled as well, it's just the sound. Bit of sub, that's going into some distortion, which is not really doing anything actually. And then reverb filter, which isn't moving around either. Okay, then that's going into Decapitator. Oh. EQ, Pro R, which I'm using as a convolution. I stopped using Pro R just because I don't know, I just got a bit tired of it. Then Trash, bit of mild excitement there. So just dialed in a bit of the shape here and then push the drive up a little bit. It's pretty much that. And then EQ, boosting that upper mid-range. Shaped these resonances down low. Then a lot of compression. And then even more overdrive in the end after the compression. And then finally some EQ, just dipping out that area, and then boosting up pretty heavily this the tops region up here. EQ curves like this aren't necessarily bad if you're using them in a creative way like this. I like to view it as clean distortion, as the way it's colouring the sound is less apparent than a distortion unit or something like that. But it's essentially doing the same thing, you're just making those frequencies louder. So using it this way, you can use saturation as well, but I like to just use Pro Key sometimes for this kind of thing, and you get a bit more control, be a bit more surgical with the sound. It doesn't necessarily always mean it sounds great, and if you're boosting these, it can sound like fucking terrible. But I think these EQ curves aren't too bad. I've tried to get a bit better with that recently. But if you could use Saturn for this instead. So that's probably what I'd do nowadays. I'd just make a band around here and then boost that up with Saturn. Use saturation, general saturation, rather than using the EQ. And then you're also not making the sound louder. Because as you can see, without that EQ, we're sitting nicely at -3, but then with this EQ, we're nearly kissing 0 there, so you've got to keep that in mind as well. Okay, so what other things have we got? It's like a variation. I'm not sure what's changed here, I think. Perhaps the tuning. Yeah, not sure where that comes in. So I think... Ooh. Yeah, these are just variations of the sound where I've moved the filter around slightly and changed a few of the settings, but I think it's just to do with where the filter is. Okay, this is the plucky cool switch synth that comes on later in the track. We've got a contact actually. Oh. Ah, that's my contact has been a bit annoying recently. That's stuff for the drums in the intro, which I'll go over later on. Okay, so then we've got the switch, which is here. So that's just a preset, I think. Pepper Saw bass. I think I might have tuned it, tweaked it a little bit. Resonant filter there. So the original idea that I had for the track was just this kind of rolling, you know, for the whole track. But then I thought that's a bit too ripping off Misanthrop really. Around this time, I think, was when he'd just released the Garbage Truck remix that he did, and he was really coming into his own with that kind of plucky, syncopated style. I didn't want to just rip that off, so I just kept it for the switch instead. So this is going into Pro Q, Overdrive, more EQ, more EQ. This is all just like subtractive mostly, just shaping the sound a little bit more. And then CamelPhat. Same settings as before. I think this is just the default preset that you load up CamelPhat with, but I've taken off the LFO and I've just kept the distortion on. I think I've just used the same values that it comes with there. Maybe a slightly more excitation here on this sound. Same again for the Magic EQ, compression with P and whatever that is. And yeah, that's that. And finally some more EQ, this subtractive, again low cut down here otherwise. As you can see, it just massively clears that area up. And what else we've got in here? Then it's just playing around with the stems, which I'll talk about in a bit. Right, what's going on over here? Ah, there you go. That's where the serum bits come in. So cool. Oh, I love those synths, man. Okay, let's talk about the drums then. Let's just unmute even all of these bits, and then unmute the drums. So this is the break. Get there eventually. Okay, so we've got a lot of layers here, lots of clap layers. So the drum, kick drum, it's actually just a Vengeance kick drum. this guy, which I've done a cut-off filter. Just softened it up a little bit. I've faded out everything. The end of the tail of the sample. And then that's going into just a bit of EQ. Excuse me. COVID. Okay. Lots of Vengeance samples. So I've got some hats here which are pretty distorted and crunchy, so let's go up those. Some EQ, Uber mod, which is spreading it a little bit. Some vintage verb here, which I should have done this. Low cut all of the reverb. Getting a bit of space there. And then camel fat. Oh god. So bit crushed these quite a bit. So I think though the inspiration for that was with the couple of the mid-ranges, like this guy in particular. This one. It's cool, like robotic kind of sound. I wanted to marry that up a bit with the drums in some way, and that's why I bit crushed the hats quite heavily. It's a bit too much, I think, but you can kind of hear it. It sounds a bit industrial. And then some more EQ, just rolling off the lows, which I do even more aggressively now. I do more like this kind of curve rather than. But hey ho, you learn something new every day. And then, oh god, what am I doing? Then, that's been layered with a stem from the original, which is this one. But that's been sidechained. Oh shit, I've unmuted everything. Anyway, back to the drums. So with the sidechain trigger, I'm only sidechaining to the kick mostly. No, I'm sidechaining to the snare. This is when I was only using one sidechain trigger, which is here. So this is the automation curve for the sidechain. And it's actually been, I've done the pre, I can't remember the word, where the sidechain triggers just before the snare actually comes in. You get a bit more of an interesting rhythm that way. Let's talk about the snare. Snare. I've actually pitched this as well. I think it's this layer. Yeah, so this first layer that's on the snare is pitched the second time around. Kind of using it as a tonal element, I guess. Which I like to do sometimes just so the drums aren't too static and you get a bit more of an interesting sound, I think. It makes it sound a bit more organic. Like it may actually be a drum that's been played by someone because there's like slight variations in the pitch. It's a cool technique. Good if you feel like your drums are a bit too stale throughout the track, you can do that kind of thing. But then you got to make sure that the note that the drum is playing is actually, you know, in the right key of the track. So that's when you got to start pitching your drums correctly. This transient is just really short, snappy thing. It's transient processor on this, but it's not actually doing anything. Bit of compression. Just touching it. Touching the snare. And then some EQ here as well. And then I've got these weird clap layers which I've layered, which are being sidechained as well. This is fully wet with Ubermod, just spreading out the sides. I do these differently now. And then it's Vocodex is on it. Which is adding this weird Vocodex texture. Which I think I mentioned in a previous video. I usually use Disperser now for these kind of sounds. They've got that nice organic sloppy texture, but without the weird resonances that Vocodex can introduce. I could probably do this now. Yeah, I'd use something like that instead. And I just realised I have... I don't know where it was. Oh no, I've ruined it. I've ruined the snare drum. Oh no. It doesn't make that much of a difference, so... Yeah, this layer is just kind of... I've brought out faded the sample in, so I don't have the transient there. This also being done here. I've taken out the attack of the transient pretty much completely and cut the release slightly, which is really cool. But that's a usual technique I'll use with my snares. Just have one big transient and then a little faded out sample. And then I've EQ'd out that part of the track 2 of the snare, sorry. The where the transient's sitting around 400, and then a bit of reverb. So here I changed the transient, so I used a different transient which is lower in pitch. So loud, this remix, good God. So that's the drums. They changed later on in the second bit. And I just pitch up the snare instead, which I'm not a fan of that idea anymore, I gotta be honest. I'm listening to this remix, there's a lot of things I would have done differently, and that, I don't know if that makes me sad or if that's just a normal response. But I want to make a comment on this noise, which is a part of the intro, which is around here. Ah, so cool. I love those sounds. So I just looped that. Excuse me. I took that part of the sound and then I looped it. And that kind of became the basis of the whole track. That's always pretty much there throughout the whole thing. And that made such a huge difference. So if I take that out, I mean, it's still cool, it's still pretty heavy, but like that makes such a massive difference to me. And when I've looped that here in the because as well in the original, when this mid-range, well, I pretty much just took that whole piece and used it as it is. As it's so cool, and there was no way I could have made that any better apart from maybe I added this other Reese kind of sound, which I'll go into in a second. But when I needed something that was going to keep the tension throughout this section, because in the original it kind of there's a noticeable like, okay, where's this going? Where's the next part going to be? And because of where this noise comes in, the second time it's not on the first bit of the fourth, after 4 bars, it's like after 3 bars, and then the build happens, so it kind of throws people off. When I played the original live, when I played the original in clubs, people always get thrown off and they don't know when the build is where it's going and when it's gonna drop. People get thrown off by like a bar, so then when it finally does have the impact, people are like, oh shit, okay, now we're dancing. So I wanted to keep that constant sort of, to keep it in time pretty much, and give listeners a sense of where the track was at that time. So I just looped that sound pretty much. Yeah, so I feel like that gives it a bit more tension and such and things. So there, it's just the bits of the risers and all of that, and the kick roll, which is from the original stems. Just got loads of plate reverb on for some reason. Yeah, let's go into that weird Reese sort of noise thing. Okay, so this is a resample from Repro that I made. Let's clone this and see what it sounded like originally. It's just that, which I've then reversed, crossfaded and looped, which is then going into excuse me, oh, very sorry. What else is going on here? Is there a sub? No, I think it's just the sub from the original sample here. That's then going into the camel fat. Again, it's just the same, I think it's the same distortion that I've used throughout the track for all the different sounds. I've just taken off the LFO, the default LFO that's here, and used the distortion and the compression and all that kind of stuff. And then this cool plate reverb, which has got a bit of a pre-delay as well, which I think is pretty cool. And then vocodecs. Doing vocodecs things. But then, like I said, I'd probably use this nowadays. Yeah, I'd probably use that now rather than... and then do some more mid-range distortion instead. I just prefer the texture of that nowadays, but this sounds really cool. And then I've low-cut everything out. Excuse me. Cut out the sides again, and pretty aggressively boosted the mids and the highs. So it's pretty much been used as a layer. There you go. And that's pretty much that. And then this is as we have already said. Then let's go with the intro. So the intro, pretty much the same. I think I just moved a couple of bits of the samples around, kept it pretty neat, and then I've added just some percussion. And then I had these, it's Damage that I used here in the original. But it's not playing here. It's obviously I need to sort that out. Might be able to sort that out. So Crumble Kit, I think it said behind it. I had to quickly look. This is my version of Contact that actually works. Let's see what it's doing. No, that's not it. Crumble Kit, was it? Maybe it's up here. Crumble Kit. There we go. Yeah, just some percussion-y bits and bobs with delays and all that kind of stuff. This is a percussive thing that I think I've time stretched out. Then kick, half time. And then I added this, excuse me, I added this synth down here. Can't take credit for that, I think that's a preset. Repro, I love you. Then some pretty heavy compression on the end of that. Some reverb, and that's been drowned in the rest of the track. Because that's the only thing I feel like this track was missing originally, is that there's no real melody in the intro, no real hook there. It just kind of has there's the cool orchestral stuff. There's the cool orchestral stuff. There'll be an EQ somewhere that's cutting it out. I need to unmute all of this fucking automation. Why? Trademark Face and Misanthrope brass. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So I guess this is probably a poor thing to excuse me, go into, is the remixes, because working with such good source material you don't really want to change it around too much. But I hope I made it my own in a way. There's not really much else to go into. I think that kind of covers the remix for the second part. I just changed things about a little bit. I've just got this jungle sample which I've used as the bass, and then well, that's that. That is the remix. Excuse me again. Oh, there's this on the master. That gets automated in just before this build here. Just creates a weird effect on the whole of the track, pretty much. So the master chain is 2 L2s and a compressor. 2 L2s and a compressor to make the track really loud for you. Which is clipping, actually, that compressor. Good grief. Yeah, it's pretty slammed. I would advise against this, and I've got True Peak on, which is bad for me. So this is another thing that I changed about the original, is that true peak limiting is on, which kind of squashes your transients, which you can use at the end stage, but as I'm using this at the beginning stage as well, if you listen, the transients are kind of mushy. I'll turn it off. Particularly on the snare, it just cuts through slightly more there. It sounds a bit cleaner to me. And one of the mistakes of this remix. But there you go. Same sort of mastering loudness chain that I usually use nowadays. However, I wasn't using the high pass back then either on the compressor. So pretty much everything is being slammed alongside the sub 2. And I'm also going for heavier compression than I normally do nowadays. Excuse me, I'm really sorry about this cough. Wish I didn't have it. Fucking hell. Right, so I'm going to wrap it up. So that's the remix. I hope you found that interesting. Next time I'm going to go into something original. By that I mean one of my own tracks, not... this isn't original. I just mean something where I've done a lot more jiggery pokery in, and you can learn a bit from. So I hope you found that interesting. Hope you're enjoying the samples, and also this month. Sorry, I'm gonna have some music out next week, so stay tuned for that. That's going up on the Patreon too, and I hope you're well and don't get COVID. It fucking sucks. Goodbye.